Y'all often hear me talking about where is the money, not just when it comes to the ad agencies and big corporations spending some $340 billion on an annual basis. It's also when companies make these pledges to black folks, and it's really about PR as opposed to fulfilling their promises. Well, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, Massachusetts, has been pushing corporations to actually do that. So many people made billions of dollars in commitments in the wake of the death of George Floyd. And you know what's happened since then? They fired a bunch of DEI people. Many of them are pulling back from those commitments. So was it real or was it all talk? Congresswoman Pressley joins us right now. Glad to have you back on the show. How you doing?
It's great to be with you, Roland, always. That theme song is a vibe. I just need to say that.
Well, you can thank In Vogue. When I had my TV One show, I reached out to them and to do the theme show, and so the folks at TV One like, well, we think it sounds dated, and I was like, y'all chose some bland ass canned news music. So when I did this show, they have actually gifted me that song, and they said because of what I do for the community, and so we get to get a little funky every day playing that theme song. So shout out to Terry and Cindy for doing that. So definitely glad you like it. Let's get to it. Let's talk about the money. All of these folks, all of these companies, I mean, they made announcements, issued press releases, posted things on social media. And I've seen some estimates that it's as low as $30 billion, as high as $100 billion commitments that were made. And the people who've tried to track these things, I know I've called on different HBCU business departments, the NAACP, the Urban League, and others to actually track these commitments. Bottom line is, it was a bunch of hot air.
Well, Roland, let me just first say thank you for having me on. This is Black History Month, but it's Black History every day on your show. And indeed, Black-owned media does matter. I also just want to explain that my oversight effort is specific to my role on the Financial Services Committee, of which I'm seated. So my letter and my outcry and my demand for the receipts is specific to the financial services industry and to banking, which has played a huge role in the oppression and marginalization of Black folk. The Congressional Black Caucus, of which I'm a proud member, is doing a similar accountability measure that is focused on corporations. But so far as my efforts, I put out a public letter to the 5 biggest banks, banks like JPMorgan Chase, Bank of America, Citi, Wells Fargo. And I asked them, requested of them, well, actually, I was a little bit firmer than that, demanded that...
you didn't just ask, you demanded.
Demanded that they provide me with a comprehensive audit of their efforts. Because as you allude to, at the height of Black Lives Matter and the murder of George Floyd, they made commitments of racial equity to the tune of $32.5 billion with a B dollars.
Just those 5?
Yes.
232 billion?
No, 32.5.
Sorry, 32.5 billion. Got it.
32.5 billion. Now, the racial wealth gap is $10 trillion, okay? But because they made these racial equity pledges, we wanted this comprehensive audit so that we could comb through it and see if they kept it. Because, personally, anecdotally, I certainly have not felt the impact of $32.5 billion. When you talk about a racial reckoning, that is something that's commensurate to the harm that's been caused. And we have not felt that. So my team has worked hard to comb through these 200 plus pages. They did actually respond. They responded according to the deadline. And so we're just finalizing that analysis. But I will share with you in my quick read, we have seen some strides made when it comes to investments in housing opportunities, and I'm going to continue to push them on that. But what I'm looking for from our financial institutions, because of the harm that they've caused with the systemic denial of mortgage loans, of denial of loans to Black small business, of the redlining of whole neighborhoods and communities, is for them to undo centuries of harm and to chart a different path forward. That's not only about the external investments that they make, it's also about the institutional changes that they must make. In Massachusetts, Roland, 230 bank branches have been closed. In the city of Boston alone, there have been well over 30. Now, that has a residual impact since many people rely only on public transportation or only are able to only do their business in cash. Boston, 10% of our community is unbanked and 20% of it is underbanked. So they have closed numerous bank branches. I want them to reopen those branches. I also want to see Black folks promoted to positions of leadership. I also want them to eliminate overdraft fees, and I want them to expand language access. So that's where we are right now. We'll be, rolling out a more formal reporting of our findings in these 200 plus pages that they sent us as we finalize our analysis of this data in the disaggregate.
What was interesting here is that when you talk about that particular number, JPMorgan alone pledged $30 billion to racial equity. I know PNC Bank, I think, did $1 billion. I was looking here. This is the Market Watch story. Go to my iPad, y'all, of JPMorgan and what their commitment was, that $30 billion. And, just recently, Jamie Dimon, their CEO, renewed his commitment to DEI, but the question, as we always say, proof in the pudding. I can tell you, I've been dealing with them for 3 years on advertising with Black-owned media and have gotten nowhere but, meetings and emails going back and forth. U.S. Bank, they actually, a couple of years ago, a year later, released this showing that they actually increased by $100 million their investment in Black-owned companies and some other things that they did as well. But to your point, the proof is in the pudding. Matter of fact, when I met with General Motors 2021, I told their then CMO, Deborah Wall, I will never praise you for press releases. I will praise you and credit you when I see direct deposits. And that's what this boiled down to. Where are the direct deposits into Black communities by these financial services companies, and not buying tables at NAACP Freedom Fund dinners?
Exactly. And that's why, we're so grateful for how you righteously steward your platform to call folks out, because we have to keep the pressure up.
And so have these 5 institutions, have they all responded?
They've all responded, and they all responded within the time that we outlined. So they met the deadline, and again, they submitted some 200 plus pages of response, and so we're in the final stages of that analysis.
And one of the things that, and your letter may have covered this, and one of the things that what I've been doing, what I've made clear, that when I'm talking to these corporations, I'm not just advocating just for Black-owned media. My whole point is I want to see, look, you use transportation companies are using Black transportation companies. They got catering companies they're using. They're using audio and visual companies. They're using all these different services that where we often get completely left out. One of the biggest areas of many of these banks and others are in the professional services areas. And so, look, they have outside law firms, outside accounting firms, you name it, and many of them use no Black law firms, no Black accounting firms. And so I think the problem for a lot of people when they think in terms of corporations, they just think, construction or stuff like that. It's like, no, there's a way to do this where you are empowering these businesses. But the problem is when we can't grow and achieve scale, then we also can't hire people. Absolutely. So all of this comes back to economic justice, which is racial justice. Yep. And
And we so often reference that march on Washington. We cannot forget that it was a march for jobs and freedom, the type of freedom that comes from economic justice. We have a $10 trillion racial wealth gap. That's not just Black folks' problem. That's everybody's problem. So we want the receipts and we want to feel the impact. And so that's why, again, we have to continue to keep the pressure up. And I will continue to conduct my own oversight of these financial institutions. And one other thing, Roland, recently I was appointed to the Artificial Intelligence Task Force, specifically focused on our financial institutions. And I'm also closely monitoring this because as we move to AI, think about the impact of AI on things like credit screenings or loan approval. And there are already biases within these algorithms. So I will be very closely monitoring to make sure that what has already been a systemic pattern of discrimination, that those denials are not perpetuated by AI. If you see a pattern, we're very concerned. If you see a pattern in those denials, let's say for a credit screening, there's no explainability. What is your recourse when it's AI?
Absolutely.
So these are all the things that I'm closely following.